Joining us now is Energy Secretary Chris Wright. Great to have you back on the show today.
Great to be here, Shannon.
Okay, and we start with a lot of breaking news. The president has said this morning that if Iran does not reopen the strait, come to the table, sign this deal, that he's going to wipe out every power plant and every bridge in Iran. What do you make of the situation where we are right now?
Look, I think things are actually going quite well for the United States. I think we are not too far away from a deal, but of course these are the dying gasps of a desperate regime that's for decades pursued a nuclear weapon, and they see that effort is going to come to an end.
Well, the IRGC said this weekend, even as the president was saying Iran's never going to shut the strait again, they said, no, you've got to come through us. So it sounds very much like they are still in control of the strait. Accurate?
Well, they have missiles that can travel through the strait, and people don't want to take risks. I think everyone understands this situation will be cleared out for good. Why risk an encounter a few days early? Yeah,
because there were these major maritime groups like BIMCO, for people who know. I mean, they handle a lot of the shipping and what happens within that industry. And their chief security officer had put out on Friday an urgent safety message saying that even though the president's saying Hormuz is open at the time, he said, no way, there's status of mines threats there. It's understand that shipping should consider avoidance of the area. It is not safe for transit. How do you quell those fears that the industry is going to continue to have over actually getting ships moving again, which will actually change the global impact of what's happening with oil and gas?
Yes, that'll take time, but probably not too much time. There are negotiations with the Iranians going on, despite what you hear in the chatter in public. I think those are actually going well. I think before long, you'll see an agreement that achieves the United States' end, puts an end to the 47 years of terrorism launched from Iran, and probably launches Iran on a better trajectory for its own people as well.
Well, and there's the worry, too, about the people, because I know that's been part of the conversation from the administration, is wanting to help the Iranian people themselves. The leadership, obviously, a different story. But when the president talks about blowing up every power plant and every bridge, how does that complicate things for if the people do have an opportunity to rebuild there, and how far it sets back some kind of recovery for the country?
Look, the president's using every way he can to get leverage over the regime to bring this conflict to an end. He's a creative negotiator. He uses pressure in different ways. He uses uncertainty in different ways. And I think, as you've seen over the last 16 months, it generally leads to good results. I don't think we'll see any surprises here. I think we'll have a nice end to this conflict and have the Middle East finally not have a constant terror, a constant risk over the regimes in the area, the economies in the area, and ultimately the flow of goods through the Straits of Hormuz. Imagine a nuclear-armed Iran. Not far away from that reality. This is going to put an end to it.
So how would you consider, what would you consider a win? What would you consider the finish line? Is it the Straits open, there's no threat there? Is it us taking the enriched uranium? It's a vow that they will never again have a nuclear program. What's the finish line for the administration?
Yeah, the finish line is confidence that the Iranian nuclear program is over. That's not a threat that's coming. Because that's a threat we can't dismantle. So a successful outcome is the threat of nuclear-armed Iran is over. The Straits of Hormuz are open. Commerce and peace returns to the region.
Okay, it's a heavy lift at this point, but we'll see, where we get in the next couple of days of negotiations, what sounds like the president's final offer is on the table. I want to ask you about this issue as well over Russian oil, the allowance of it to be on the market in some respect during this conflict and during the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. A number of Democrat senators issued a statement Friday saying that we're giving Putin a great advantage. They say he's been the biggest beneficiary of Trump's war against Iran. Russian oil saw revenues nearly double in March. They say enough is enough. President Trump needs to stop letting Putin play him for a fool and impose additional sanctions on Putin, who is clearly not feeling sufficient pressure from this president.
Yeah, of course, it's remarkable to me how many just irresponsible, ridiculous things the Democrats say. They just keep doubling down on stupid. This is pragmatic stuff. The Russian oil is sold to China. Russia does sell their oil. It goes to China. We've just made a pragmatic humanitarian thing in the short run to say, instead of having all of that oil go to China, let some of that oil go to India. Let some of that oil go to other countries in Asia that are going to refine that oil, power their people. And India exports gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel to Europe, who's also terrified about the price of their energy prices. These are short-term, pragmatic decisions to to allow oil that was already flowing to flow a different direction. And they're temporary.
Okay. Quickly before we let you go, I want to ask about this question. We're going to cover this later in the show in a little bit more in depth about these missing scientists and people who've been turned up dead, some of them with connections to nuclear or to things involving UAPs, that kind of thing. And the president has now addressed this, saying that he's been in a meeting. Something is happening, at least as far as looking into it. And then we get a report. It's actually the Department of Energy where some of this is going to be centered. The National Nuclear Security Administration telling us they're aware of the reports about the employees' labs, plants, and sites. They're looking into the matter. Is there a formal investigation within DOE?
There is. There's a coordinated investigation across various branches of the government. But yeah, a lot of the nuclear security, nuclear scientists are in DOE. So yes, of course we are looking into this.
All right. Anything more you can tell us about that, or when we might expect some developments or public information regarding that?
Too early to say about that. We haven't found anything alarming yet.
Okay. Well, keep us up to date and let us know. Secretary, always good to see you.
Thanks for having me,
Thanks for
Shannon.
coming in.